On today's episode of Locked On Texans, more takeaways from OTAs, and will there be a bounce back season for both Jalen Pitre and Dameon Pierce?
We hope so.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to this Thursday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to all of our first-time listeners. Please do us a favor and subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you to all of our returning listeners coming back as Cody and I continue to talk Texans. I'm your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. On the other side of the screen, Texans credential media member, Sports Illustrated's own Cody Davis. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Cody, day 2 of us talking about OTAs for the Houston Texans. Interesting conversations for us to have, so let's not wait no more. Dive into it.
Yes, sir. As you mentioned, more takeaways from OTAs from when the Texans had the media out there on Tuesday, John. And let me preface my statement by saying this, because if you look over to the menu of what we're going to talk about, bounce back season for Dameon Pierce, bounce back season for Jalen Pitre, and whether or not you should buy way too early stock in Cade and Jared Wayne, I do want to preface my statement first by saying this. I understand with OTAs, voluntary OTAs, especially non-contact, you can have a situation where a player can look better than what he truly is, or it could be vice versa. A player not looking so great than what we know he could definitely be. And when we was out there on Tuesday, look, John, listeners and viewers, there was a handful of players that stood out to us. I mean, we all saw the video, the phenomenal video of CJ throwing a no-look pass. Nico Collins, which was crazy, by the way. You know it's bad when you fake the cameraman, because I had to go back and watch it. Either the cameraman was like, oh, to make sure that you get that. I believe he threw that pass to Joe Mixon, which I cannot wait to see that tandem for this upcoming season. Nico Collins looked damn good. Still look like he's going to be considered as wide receiver number 1, which isn't a bad thing. I understand that you got Stephon Diggs, but when you take a look at the fact that Stephon is getting up there in age and Nico Collins is still scratching the surface of how good he can be, that is not a bad thing. Of course, the biggest takeaway on Tuesday was the fact that regardless of what had transpired with Tank Dell, he looked good, he looked healthy, he looked fast, and he looked better from his rookie campaign. You either had people like Dameon Pierce, so we're going to talk about later on in the show, went out there and made a play. Darius Stingley Jr. recording the interceptions. You know, these are guys, in one way or another, we feel a little bit more confident in talking about how good they looked on Tuesday because we have seen them do it before. However, John, like I mentioned, with OTAs, you can kind of get an unfair evaluation due to the fact that there's going to be some guys that might look good to where when things start getting serious, whether in training camp, in preseason, or regular season, you might come back and scratch your head, man, what happened to the guy that you was raving about in OTAs? I say all that just to say, if I walked away from OTAs on Tuesday thinking to myself that Cade Stover and Jared Wayne can definitely shake up the competitive nature come training camp, because both of those guys look damn good. Both of those guys ended Tuesday's practice with about 2 to 3 catches during team scrimmages. John, you know me, ever since Jared Wayne has been signed to the Houston Texans dating back to last season as an undrafted free agent, my biggest thing was I want to see him use his 6'3" body frame in order to get those catches, where he did it not once but twice on Tuesday. Cade Stover, ended the day with 2 catches, looked really, really good. One of my favorite moments was watching him catch a contested pass attempt from Case Keenum. And to understand how good Cade Stover looked, this is what Dalton Schultz had to say.
I like him. He's a hardworking kid. He's very, eager to learn. I usually get to the meetings pretty early, but he beat me a couple times. But yeah, he's a good kid. I think he made some catches out there today that were nice. Just I'm excited to have kind of a young guy that's super, excited to just learn football, because he told me that. He's like, listen, I'm early playing this position. He told me, he's like, I'm literally just learning from you. So I'm excited for him.
You look at this tight end unit as of right now, you can basically say it's set. We all know that Dalton Schultz is going to be number 1. Number 2 is definitely going to be Brevin Jordan. And then you also have Tegan Cotoriano, who was out there on Tuesday as well. He was another one for the very first time that we saw since he went down with his season-ending injury, dating back to last year's training camp. However, John, looking at what I saw out of Cade Stover, man, he's definitely going to shake up that position group, because not only do we have an opportunity to see him go out there and make plays on the ball, the one thing that a lot of people was raving about in terms of his drop possession was the fact that he can definitely help out in the rushing attack with his passing. And that is something that the Houston Texans would definitely try to utilize. Same thing with Jared Wayne. I understand that this wide receiving core is extremely deep. However, I do believe that Jared Wayne has the potential to where, look, come cut down day, if we looking at that 53-man roster and Robert Woods and Noah Brown is not on that list, Jared Wayne could definitely be the person that could be why. And both of those guys can definitely be a secret X factor into how explosive this offense could be in 2024, and could definitely go out there and make plays for the Houston Texans regardless of when they play. I was about to say Sunday, then I thought they playing Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and then of course Wednesday afternoon.
You got a Saturday.
Christmas. Got a Saturday. They just playing all over the place. And look, once again, I want to preface my statement by saying I understand that it's OTAs, non-contact, and all that other stuff, but both of those guys look damn good.
Yeah, and I think with Jared Wayne, that's a guy I would love to see make the roster. I think his competition right now is going to be the likes of Xavier Hutchinson, Noah Brown, and Robert Woods. Noah Brown re-signed with the Houston Texans this offseason after signing a 1-year deal. So I think financially it wouldn't hurt Houston to move on from him if he's not necessarily outplaying the guys that he's going up against that's in that room in terms of competition. But what I like about this year for Jared Wayne is simply having an opportunity to get on the same page with CJ Stroud early on. And when I say early on, I mean right now in May, right? Not having to wait until later in the offseason period, whether you look at July or August, but he's getting an opportunity now to get those reps in, to learn some of the tendencies of CJ Stroud, Davis Mills, Case Keenum, but just learning how he can win for himself. And then once we get to training camp, once we get to that part of the year, once we get to preseason, one thing that I didn't think Houston did a good job of last year that I hope that they do a better job this year was exposing themselves a little bit more in their passing game offensively. Right? I thought last year was very careful with the receivers they put out there during during preseason. Didn't air it out necessarily a lot. And again, training camp really isn't, I guess, for that. But I thought Houston played it very safe. I want them to expose themselves a little bit more. And by that, give them an opportunity, give those young players like a Jared Wayne, give some of those vets like a Robert Woods, who I think will still be here by the time we get to cut down day, give them an opportunity to prove that they're actually better than the next man in that room by giving them live reps against another team. I found myself questioning last year, okay, third quarter, fourth quarter, you got your starters out, got some of your rotational guys out, your depth, the depth pieces that is going to make the roster. Go ahead and open up the playbook a little bit. Not, can't get too creative, but just air it out a little bit. Give a Jared Wayne, give a Johnny Johnson, Right? I thought John Mechie, give a John Mechie that opportunity. So I like that for Wayne. I think it's important for him to go ahead and start building on some of that chemistry with live reps now. That way, by the time he gets to training camp, he's in a better situation than he was last year. He'll be in a better situation in July than he is in May, simply because he has some of the small things down already, and he's been working out all last season on the practice squad, all off season. I follow him on Instagram. He's been working out. He's been putting in that work. I want to see him get an actual shot to prove that, hey, I'm better than some of these vets y'all either brought in last year or re-signed. And again, with Jerry Wayne, I do want to mention, in college, he only had one 1,000-yard receiving season. However, he did not have a season with under 14 yards per catch, and his highest is 17.7. In college, he was a big play down the field type of receiver.
And to your point, really quick about Jerry Wayne, I do want to mention this. And yes, it's extremely too early to start, talking about who was with the third, second, and first team. But I thought it was very telling to see Jerry Wayne go out there and get reps with the first team. And I understand Stephon Diggs wasn't out there. Noah Brown was there, but he was not dressed. He was watching on the sidelines. But even in a situation where you had a wide receiver missing for this particular practice or whatever the case might be, Jerry Wayne did not get those reps in with CJ last year. He just didn't get it. As for Cade Stover, he didn't have an opportunity to get reps with the first team, but he did towards the back half of the 11-on-11 play. He started getting some reps with the second team, but majority of his reps did come on third team. But John, I'm sorry I just had to jump in, but everything that you said about Jerry Wayne having a fair opportunity, a fair chance to go out there and compete. Once again, man, when I looked up and noticed that he was running with that first team squad, I was like, that's different. That's a little bit telling.
And that's good. I think right now, man, and with this coaching staff and how they've built this roster, what I like most right now is they are going to give guys every chance that they can get to prove whether or not they can be on this 53-man roster. And this roster is very competitive. This roster will be deep. So we're going to look at this team having Nick Caserio in the front office. They're going to make some tough cut decisions, but they're going to give guys every opportunity to prove, hey, you know what? No disrespect to the next guy, but for what we're building here, I'm better than him. And I think Jerry Wayne falls in that category. I'm not worried about Cade Stover. He'll make the roster. Jerry Wayne is on the bubble. He's on the bubble, and I think he's going to make a real push. Not saying he'll make the 53. Would love that, rooting for him, but he's going to make it difficult on Houston to cut him and keep somebody else. Kind of like Khalil Davis did last year. When it comes to your financial future, you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses, and that's Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need all in one place. You can't beat that. Everything you need in one place. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors. And now, this is how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com.
So as I alluded to, I think one day last week, the 2024 season is going to be a very big year for the 2022 draft class. Well, first and foremost, I think Derek Stingley Jr. would definitely be knocking on the door of a Pro Bowl caliber season. I think that we're basically about to start seeing the best version of Christian Harris. But outside of those two, everybody else who came in 2022, man, there's a lot of questions surrounding him, especially the two guys that we're about to talk about, Jalen Pitre and Dameon Pierce. And for this segment, I want us to focus on Jalen Pitre because we had an opportunity to talk to him on yesterday. And Pitre was very transparent in terms of building off the struggles of last year.
Calmness. I think that's the next step for me, just being calm and understanding what the coaches want from me. And, after that, just making plays on the ball. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to. And, just more wins from the Texans. That's the biggest goal. Like he just said, or like I just said, talking to him, I think it's the calmness, understanding what these coaches want from me, going through a lot of ups and downs last year, understanding my role and, just trying to build on that. I'm in a great spot. I understand what the coaches want from me, and I'm looking forward to year 3.
I'm encouraged by what Jalen Pitre said because first and foremost, Johnny, you can let me know if you agree or not, but I felt everything that he said, especially, knowing what the coaches want from them, it goes hand in hand into what you and I have been talking about this whole entire offseason in terms of having a young player find stability within a coaching staff. And we already know the story, so we're not about to dive into a rookie season. Phenomenal. This time last year, most of us was looking at Jalen Pitre like an all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber player. Now it's like, will he still be starting come week 1? But just looking at Jalen Pitre lets me know that not only has he found stability in the coaching staff, but I also wonder whether or not he faltered under the pressure that he was in last year. Because rookie season was phenomenal. A lot of high expectations coming into year 2, and he fell completely short. But the one thing that I always went back to was the fact that even though last year was a down year from Jalen Pitre, there was moments where we still saw the potential and the talent there. One of my favorite moments of last season was when the Texans got that, I think it was week 14 or week 15 victory against the Tennessee Titans. And you go back and you take a look at that game midway through the fourth quarter, Will Levis nearly connected with DeAndre Hopkins for what would have been like a 20-yard gain. And if it wasn't for Jalen Pitre getting one of the most important pass deflections of the season, and I say important because had those two connected, Tennessee Titans go away with the victory, and now you're looking at a situation, if the Texans lose that game, do they still make the playoffs? And if they don't make the playoffs, are we still having these, Super Bowl AFC conversations around them, AFC championship conversations around them? So I use that as an example to showcase that last year Jalen Pitre had his flashes, but I think now for him, knowing what D'Amico Ryans is looking for, knowing what Matt Burks is looking for, and plus having another year and an opportunity just to develop his skill set on the NFL level, I truly do believe that Jalen Pitre will have a phenomenal season of bouncing back in year 3.
Yeah, and I think for Pitre, man, a lot of things changed for Pitre from his rookie year to his sophomore year in the NFL, right? Number one, you saw Jalen Pitre in his rookie year, according to PFF and my eye test, he played around the defensive line a lot more his rookie year. He played in the box a lot more his rookie year. Not by a huge number, but he played in the box a lot more his rookie year. And I think that's where you get the better version of Jalen Pitre. Mm-hmm. This past year, he played more in the slot a little bit. Not that much, only maybe 10 or so snaps, but not as many snaps lined up around the D-line. Half of those was cut down. Not that many lined up in the box, right? Nearly 90 of those snaps cut down. And I think that impacted him a little bit. I think Houston wanted to see him maybe be more of a safety. And at times he struggled with that a lot during his rookie year. You got to give Jalen Pitre some credit, though, man. His rookie year, he missed a lot of tackles. A lot. I mean, a lot. And I'm trying to make sure I find the most accurate number. But what I'm seeing here right now online is Jalen Pitre, who had 147 combined tackles his rookie year. Like, that's a lot for a safety. But his rookie year, he also missed around 35 tackles. Last year, he cut it down a little bit. So in some ways, he's gotten better. Mm-hmm. His rookie year, 31 stops, defensive stops compared to 23 this past year. Jalen he hit a rookie sophomore slump. We normally talk about sophomore slumps in terms of quarterbacks, but every player that enters into this league at every position, they have the opportunity to go through a sophomore slump. And I think that's what happened with Pitre last year. But I think ultimately for Houston and Pitre, in order for him to get back to being an impactful player, I think maybe it's important to look at him in a role. I think CJ is a player that you look towards to do it all on the offensive side of the ball. I think on the defensive side of the ball, Derek Stingley, Christian Harris, you look at those guys, Daniil Hunter, Will Anderson. You look at those guys to be able to do it all at their position. This year, I just want to see, even with OTAs, saw some things, and I was like, maybe could have cleaned that up. Cody, stop me. Like, how was Jaylen Pitre during the day the media was out there for Houston?
No, he was fairly decent. I mean, it was one of those hard things to tell because it's like non-contact, and then they wasn't as physical. So, like for example, I think that was, I can't remember which receiver was it, but he was able to catch a pass in double coverage, and one of the players that was there was Jalen Pitre. But it's one of them situations to where, well, if it was a live contact or preseason or just a regular season game in general, would both of those defenders would have been just a little bit more, aggressive in terms of making the stop. And that also came on 7-on-7 play. So, it was kind of hard to tell, but man, I truly believe. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think for Pitre, we got to minimize what we are expecting to see when we say things like bounce back, get back to, right? And that's not on you. That's not on me. I think in general, a lot of people we get this version of Jaylen Pitre, and that version of Jaylen Pitre played a lot of snaps. That version of Jaylen Pitre was on a very bad defense that needed somebody to do everything. Interceptions, tackles, couple of sacks, D-line, slot, box, back deep. Like, that's why I mentioned when you look at the defense, you got guys on the defensive side of the ball that you are going to look to do everything at their position. Maybe Jaylen Pitre isn't that. Maybe if you minimize, and I'm just shooting it here, once we get to training camp, it could all be different. But maybe in a minimized role for the team and our thought process of what we believe a bounce back year for Jaylen Pitre can be, maybe we'll sit back and say, oh, well, you know what? Jaylen Pitre is a good player in what he does well. And I think that should be the approach for Houston moving forward. You got Bullock back there, free safety. Between Ward and Pitre, I think those guys should be around the line of scrimmage a lot more this year.
My only rebuttal for that would be, and I get your point about having a role, but it's a lot easier for a player to play a certain role when you already have, let's say, a quote unquote number one option or a top player at that position already. Like, for the sake of this argument, just go down a little bit, look at the cornerback. To be honest, it really doesn't matter to a certain degree who's going to be starting opposite of Derek Stingley Jr. As long as Derek Stingley Jr. I'm saying more so like, how can I put this? I'm saying more so like I'm not saying that it doesn't matter. Like, they could just put me and you out there for a cornerback number 2. I'm saying whoever is going to be cornerback number 2, we are not expecting them to play as the level of a Pro Bowl or an all-pro caliber corner, because that's what we're expecting from Derek Stingley Jr. In that safety unit, look, I like Caleb Bullock. I think he's going to be a phenomenal player, but one, he's a rookie. 2, I'm not expecting that from him in year 1. I understand Jimmy Ward can take that step and be quote unquote the top safety at that position group. However, I haven't seen enough from Jimmy Ward. I've seen enough from Jaylen Pitre in his rookie season to where I can say the best version of Jaylen Pitre could definitely take to him as the best player at that position group going back to his rookie season. We didn't see it last year. And when I say bounce back, that is what I'm expecting him to reclaim that role.
Okay, I'm not mad at that, man. And I would love to see it, just like I would love to see, again, a quote-unquote, what is a bounce-back year for Dameon Pierce? We know he's not going to be RB1, but what's a bounce back for him? What's a bounce back? And I think that's an important conversation to have. And again, we are in May. Once we get to July and in the early parts of August, I could be wrong. Cody could be dead on. Cody could be dead wrong, and I could be dead spot on. But I do think the level of success that we want to see either one of these guys get back to, it definitely starts OTAs, proving that I know you brought somebody in, and for both of these players, I know you brought a youngin in, but I'm still here, and I still got a shot to be the best player at this position or the best player for my role that I have, or I can beat out that youngin that you brought in. So we'll talk about Dameon Pierce. What's a bounce back here for him on the other side of the Locked On Texans podcast? I'm going to wear. The killer last minute deals, the all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. There is no other ticket marketplace you should be buying your Astros, Rockets, Texans, Beyonce. It don't matter who's coming to town, whether it's a theater event, concert, or sporting event. There's nobody else you should buy tickets from than the Game Time app. Last minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying tickets for comedy, sports, theater events near you. With zone and flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And again, save more when you choose the section on the zone deal and let Game Time choose your seat. All in prices, you can check and see, okay, there's no fees, there's no surprise. I know exactly what I'm buying, and I know exactly how much I need to spend. And views from your seat, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On. That is LOCKEDNON NFL, Locked On NFL, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
John, you said something that caught my attention in the last segment when we were talking about Jalen Pitre. You said he was in a very bad defense where he had to do everything. And if that's true about that, do it all. And if that's true about Jalen Pitre, that's damn sure was true about Dameon Pierce. Yeah. And look, the offense got better in 2023. Dameon Pierce, unfortunately, regressed. However, John, you know, while we continue to play around with this idea of what a bounce back season look like, for Jalen Pitre, like I mentioned, for him, it's him reclaiming himself as the top player in that position group. For Dameon Pierce, with the addition of Joe Mixon, he would not have an opportunity to do so. However, for me, a bounce back season for him would just literally be running back number 2, plain and simple. And this is what Coach DeMeco Ryans had to say about the improvements that Dameon Pierce have made so far.
Yeah, what I've seen from Dameon this offseason, it's a guy who's put in the work. As you mentioned, he's changed his body, right? He's strong. He's been working out every day of the offseason program. Dameon, not only here just working out, man, I'm proud of Dameon for him going back and finishing his degree at Florida. So, I mean, just a complete man, just working out as a football player, but also finishing that degree means a lot to him. And I see Dameon having a very clear headspace as we're out working, and I think that will allow him to have a really productive year this year. And he has everything it takes, right, to be a really good running back for us, and I think having him and Joe as a 1-2 punch would be very beneficial for us all.
Hey, what I liked about that clip from DeMeco Ryans, because Cody, you were the only person I saw mention this. He's in a clear headspace.
Mm-hmm.
That does kind of put me back to your words last year during the season. Sometimes during this offseason, you mentioned, like, I don't know if he was the same in terms of just the player and person he was from his rookie year. You mentioned things looked off a little bit. So I'm glad DeMeco Ryans said that, because, you know, your mental can affect your game. And I'm also glad that he endorsed him the 1-2 punch. There's no listen, if Dameon isn't running back 2, that means he completely lost it. Because your head coach just said, I like the 1-2 Mixon, Pierce. that we can have here in Houston. Smash and grab, smash and dash, however you want to nickname it. They do need a cool nickname, I will say that. But a bounce back year for Dameon Pierce, for me personally, because I was asked this on Twitter, what does a bounce back year for Dameon Pierce look like? He can't average 2.7, 2.8 yards per carry. We know that you're not going to get a lot of, well, Houston may look to lessen the load on Joe Mixon, but we know that you're not going to get starter opportunities, right? Like Dameon may have one game where you're going to get 10 carries. The next game you may get 11. The next game you may get 5. Like who knows? I think it'll be up and down for him. But when you do get those opportunities and moments, run the ball well, hit the hole, use your vision. Don't look to initiate the contact so much before you get to the line of scrimmage. He cannot rush for under 3 yards per carry this year. That cannot happen. And I think that's realistically looking at a player who's going to be in a smaller role compared to his rookie year when he had to do it all. That's what you can do to bounce back. When you are on the field, you are contributing every snap you're on the field. Thank you guys for listening and watching this episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Also follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.